We're with Head Prefect Cristobal Tola. Do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
For sure. I definitely think it is. TP is about people from all across the world, different religions, different races. It's definitely a conversation that comes up, and it's safe to talk about. No one really here judges you. There's no judgment here. We all understand people's different beliefs and whatnot, so it definitely is something that is safe to talk about here.
Do you feel the cafeteria is divided in a certain sense?
I do think it is divided in a certain way. I don't think it's a bad thing either. I do think it's divided in the sense of people's interests, people's habits, mainly a lot of what sports. You do go down there at lunch or dinner and you see, like me, myself, like I'm a hockey kid. You'll see me around a lot of hockey people, and you see like the basketball kids along with the basketball kids, and lacrosse with lacrosse. It is definitely divided in that sense. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, like I said, it's something easy to talk about at a table when you have similar interests. But yeah, I don't think it has anything really to do with race. I think it's more about interest and whatnot.
Thank you. With Taco, do you know the difference between equity and equality?
So my opinion between equality and equity, equality involves everyone getting the same amount of fairness, which I think today is not as important as equity. So equity is fairness, like full fairness between everyone. Equality is the difference between everyone having the same thing. So I think everyone having the same fairness as everyone else, so like equity is much more important than everyone having the same equality, because equality is really just everyone having the same thing, and some people may have a disadvantage compared to everyone else.
Do you feel oppressed in your daily life?
I would say I do. It's not, of course, direct for the most part. It could be indirect. It could be maybe just like maybe the attitude of some people of different races. But it's nothing of people calling me a derogatory term or finding a direct way to insult me about my race, but it could be indirectly through maybe lack of communication between people because of my race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we started?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, we are with Jaylani. What is racism to you?
I don't know, discrimination against color or nationality.
Do you know the difference between equity and equality? What's that?
Sorry, I don't know what equity is.
Equity is giving like people what they need to succeed and not giving everybody the same thing like equality.
Okay, repeat your question then.
Do you know the difference between equity and equality?
I mean, I'd assume so.
When you hear someone say you have white privilege, how do you react?
I think I do have white privilege. Case in point, when I was in high school, I had a chemistry teacher. He ended up getting fired for this later on. But he would grade people based on the color of their skin and their hairdos. When I was in high school, I wore tie-dye T-shirts. I didn't have to get dressed all up like you guys do. I wore tie-dye T-shirts. I had super long hair. And he probably thought, I was a hippie and that maybe I was homosexual. And because of that, I would get B's on everything. I had a classmate who was Hispanic, and he would get C's on everything. And we would have like the same answers. At one point, we cheated to make sure that we had the same answers. He still got a C, I still got a B. Another student who did not have long hair, didn't do tie-dye, wore polo shirt, white kid, got an A. Same answers. Not cool. But I had white privilege because I was white. I still got a B. My buddy, Hispanic, got a C because of the color of his skin. It's messed up.
Yep.
What is racism to you?
So racism to me is like just discriminating someone just because of their skin color and nothing else, That's really the sum of it for me.
Do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
Yeah, I think we're pretty diverse here. We're pretty open about it to discuss and, see the problems and issues with it or what we think, I think it's a pretty safe place to talk about it.
Do you feel it is appropriate for white people or white men to have black, quote unquote, black hairstyles?
I mean, I don't see a problem with it. That's the hairstyle that they want. That's what they choose. I mean, anyone can have any type of hairstyle they think they want. So I don't see really a problem with it. No.
Thank you. Our head of school, Mr. Taylor. We just wanted to know if you felt safe talking about race at a wonderful place that TP is.
Sure, I do, but I say that with profound recognition that my experience with race is different than many of the students and some of the faculty here. So I feel comfortable about it because I think it's so important to talk about, diversity issues, race issues, difference issues, if we want the fabrics of this community to be stronger. But I never disassociate that comfort level from a profound respect and acknowledgement that I'm going to bring a different perspective to that discussion, one that is going to be, I think, inherently less informed of the complexity of the topic than others.
Can you give us some examples of things that you have done to kind of make it a more comfortable topic and make TP a more inclusive place to talk about it?
Well, I think, I don't think there's anything I as an individual have done, but, I helped lead the most recent strategic planning process that took almost 2.5, 3 years to complete. And this idea of belonging is one of the 5 key areas of this strategic vision, with really a key aspect of that belonging category being ways that the school can grow and the community can be strengthened by diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so if that is a main priority, then we need to be having conversations about that. We have had, I think maybe 6 years ago, we created a position for a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mr. Clower held that position for 3 years, so maybe it was 5 years ago that we did this. 3 years that he was here, he had extensive background of doing that work in college. Now Mr. Smith is in that role. So I think that, we've made some good strides toward making these conversations more, more structured into the community. I think we have a long way to go too.
Thank you. We're with Adam Ross. We're just going to be asking you a few different questions. All right. Do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
Yeah, I do. I mean, everyone's here. It's pretty inclusive. We got a lot of guys from, a lot of different places, a lot of different ethnicities. So yeah, I do think it is a safe place.
Do you think you can understand something you are not?
No, I don't.
Do you feel oppressed in your daily life at all?
No.
When you hear someone say you have white privilege, how do you react?
I mean, I don't know. It's a hard question because people say I have white privilege. I mean, damn, I'm not sure, to be honest. It's a hard question. I kind of I'm not really, I'm kind of shocked because I've never really had someone say it to me, but I don't really know how to react. Is kind of my reaction. I'm just kind of shocked. You know what I mean?
So if someone would say it to you, would you just not know what to say?
I mean, if someone walked up to me and was like, "You have white privilege," I'd be like, I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know what I'd say. It's never happened to me. So.
Do you agree or disagree that you do have white privilege? Or do you even, know or understand it?
I mean, for sure in some situations, I mean, I've never personally experienced it where I've been given something over someone else because of a different color, but I do think it does happen across this country. I mean, just because, I haven't specifically, encountered it, I don't think it doesn't happen.
Thank you.
We're with Trey. What is racism to you?
Racism to me is when a group of people force out a different ethnicity. Yeah, sure. That's what it is to me.
Are you bothered when black people use the N-word?
Me personally, no. White people came up with the word, and I think it's black people's right to be able to use it.
Thank you.
What's culture, and does someone's race play a part of that?
So I think culture is a mixture of where you're from, your ethnicity, where you're raised, who has raised you, and who are your peers. And I think that someone's race definitely plays a part in that, because based off race, some people might come from a different culture, they might come from a different religion, and I think it's important that everyone talk about their experiences and share experiences so that we can learn about each other and learn about different cultures. And we're all humans at the end of the day, so it's important to learn about different humans and learning how to move forward with each other.
What we saw in the docuseries America to Me, like the drill, how there's more, maybe one or two white girls on the cheer team, but the drill team had more white girls on it than girls of color. Many of those, I don't really know if they're problems, but many of those things are still happening today. Is there anything that that can happen to try and change that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard, and I feel like, I think there's a major difference between, being friendly with someone and being friends with someone. And, if you guys think to like your friends, you go to your friend's house, you hang out in their home, you interact with their families, you spend the night, right? Things like that. That is like being a friend to someone, which I think is different than being friendly. Saying hi in the hallway, having a class with someone, doing a project with them, being kind, right? That's all friendly, behavior. And I guess I would say that's what I see as like something that can be worked on, right? Both at this school and at Oak Park. I think that many times when people don't kind of push themselves to get out of their comfort zones, perhaps, they wouldn't, push themselves to invite someone to their home that might be really different than them or different than a friend that they've had in the past, and I think that's one easy step to change those lines of like friendliness to friendship. Whether it's inviting a kid who's from China and can't go home over the break to your home, or someone that lives in New York City inviting you, being from Atlanta to their house, to the Bronx for the weekend, or to Manhattan for the weekend. And I think it's so important to remember too, all of us, right, come from some sort of culture, right? Just because you are from Atlanta area and there's a few other kids from Atlanta, that doesn't mean that you and the other guys from Atlanta have the same experience, right? Same as, I know there's a few kids in your project from Florida. Just because they're from Florida doesn't mean that they have the same experience. Same goes from so many of our kids here. Just because they live in New York City doesn't mean they have the same experience in their life. And so, You know, I think that an important thing for us to do is to just take things a step further. Invite that kid to your room to play video games that you might not normally invite to your room, and really push yourself, instead of just being friendly and kind to people, to be a friend to them.
What is the difference between appropriation and appreciation?
So I feel like the difference between appropriation and appreciation is, like, when it comes to appropriation, you're usually like taking somebody's like culture, image, likeness, obviously without their consent, and you're trying to adopt it as your own without really knowing the true meaning behind it. Like, for example, when they would like adopt Native American war chief like headdress or headgear, certain stuff that you need to earn through rank or through sacrifice or through wherever their culture was, that you need to earn it. People are just wearing it and like kind of boasting about it without actually knowing the true meaning without it. But at the same time, I feel like culture appropriation comes down to the culture of the person, whether they will take offense to it or not. So I can't like sit here and say what will be appropriation for a Native American person, obviously, because I'm not Native American, but I'm just saying that as an example. But appreciation would be just like admiring somebody's culture, and like maybe you can appreciate it without like adopting what they do and like trying to imitate their culture. You can still appreciate it without like going that extra step to where you don't know whether it would be offensive or not to do what they do, because you don't know the meaning behind it.
Safe place to talk about race.
I do think this should be a community that is safe enough to and comfortable enough to talk about race. I don't think we talk about it enough as a community or as a place, but I definitely think there's some issues that obviously happen on campus and some issues in the dorm that I think are all areas that we should look into and talk about and feel comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable. And I think it's definitely something that should be talked about a little bit more.
We're with Sean Weinman. Do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
Absolutely.
What is racism to you?
The discrimination of people for factors that are out of their control.
Do you feel oppressed on a daily basis?
Not in the slightest.
When you hear someone say you have white privilege, how do you react?
I understand why they say that, but, you know, everyone has their own privileges. Everyone has their own struggles.
Thank you. This is Ethan Fahrenbaker and Max Lehman. Do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of resources offered if you're feeling uncomfortable. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a white man, do you feel you have been oppressed? And if so, what was the scenario?
No.
I do not.
Do you feel or do you care when a black man or black woman says the N-word?
I get kind of uncomfortable sometimes. It's a pretty harsh word, and I don't think it's necessary in the way it's used very often. So, yes.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I get a little uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say that I care.
Is it appropriate for white people to have quote-unquote black hairstyles?
Yes, I don't think hairstyle should be categorized by race.
When you hear someone say you have white privilege, how do you react?
I say, you're right. That's the truth. I'm a white male in my 40s. I clearly have enjoyed a bunch of privileges, and I recognize that, I acknowledge that. So it doesn't shock me. I think it's a good reminder that as a white person, I've enjoyed many things that not necessarily like everybody else, minorities and others, have been able to enjoy. And I think that if we were all a little more aware of the thing, life would be different in this country. So I think it's about time that we talk about white privilege and that we all try to do our part so that there's a little bit less of this white privilege and that more people enjoy the things that we were able to.
White people wear black hairstyles.
This is a interesting topic because I'd say that my opinion would probably be different from maybe the general consensus, but I feel like to an extent, there are certain black hairstyles that I would say if a white person's trying to wear it, then it's you're trying to appropriate the culture. But at the same time, me personally, I don't really see it that way. It would depend obviously on their intention, but if it's good intention or it's just the fact that they want to look good or look better with that hairstyle, they think they look better with that hairstyle, then it's I personally can't speak on that as much because I feel like this is more of a woman issue because I know a lot of black women get offended where white women try to appropriate their hairstyle. So I'd have to have a conversation with a black woman to get really into detail as to why that's such a big issue because me personally, I've never really had to experience that issue. So yeah, but to answer the question, I think to an extent it would be appropriate, but it just comes down to the person's intention when they wear that hairstyle and where they're coming from.
The point of this project was to go around our school and get people's opinions and students and teachers' opinions on racism. And now we'll show you our own opinions and what we think of some of the questions we asked some of our interviewees. Alright guys, first and foremost, let's start off with your guys' names.
I'm Jason, I'm a freshman.
I'm Jackson, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Dutch, I'm a sophomore as well.
Okay, I'm just going to be asking you guys a few questions here. So first question is, do you feel TP is a safe place to talk about race?
I do, but I think it should be brought up more and talked about more, and I just think it should be discussed more in general.
I think to an extent, I feel like as a black student, I feel like there are certain things that go on or that are said that are just let them alone ignorant or just flat out racist, but I think we should talk about it as more as a school.
I definitely think it's a safe place to talk about race, and as Jason said, it can definitely be talked about more though.
So just a little follow-up question. What do, Jason and Jackson, what do you guys mean by, can you give me an example of where we could talk about race a little bit more?
We have institutes on Saturday, and we could have maybe someone come in and discuss it more to try to get what everyone's feeling basically.
I agree with that, but I think we should talk about it in smaller groups because I feel like even if we have institutes, if we're in a big group, it's not taken as seriously. Because I feel like if we're in a classroom setting or in smaller groups, everyone's opinion and voice is heard.
I agree with that as well, what Jackson said. If we had smaller groups or if it was a student-led conversation, I think it'd be a lot more understood as opposed to coming from a person that just wants to try to get their point across. I feel like a more constructive and conversation that's more built, more made to build a relationship between people would be better.
Okay. Second question is, do you guys think it's appropriate for mainly white people to have quote-unquote black hairstyles?
Depends what you mean, if they're doing it for style or if they're doing it just to be
like appropriation?
Yeah. So, depends.
I don't know, I feel like there's a difference. I feel like there's a very fine line because there's a fine line between appreciation and appropriation. You very well could be appropriating the culture and just doing it as a joke, and I feel like that's very disrespectful. But then again, you could be appreciating it, so it just depends on who's viewing it, I guess. Because I feel like for me, my mother and my sister, they will have a different view on it than me because I don't really go through that much, so I can't really talk about it.
I agree with that. I think that if I were to attempt to get a black hairstyle, I think it'd have to do a lot with the way I wear it. Am I wearing it for how it looks, how I like it on my hair personally, or am I doing it as a joke to make fun of a black person?
Thank you. Final question of the day is, do you feel the cafeteria or Scully is divided in a certain sense?
I do. I feel like even the basketball team sits with each other, Asian kids sit with each other, Then there's sometimes one table that's usually sometimes mixed, but white people usually sit with each other. So I do feel like it is divided.
I think it's divided in race, but I feel like it's a cultural difference because I feel like it's not even I feel like I sit with a lot of the black students because I feel safe talking about certain things that I wouldn't talk about with people that are not the same race or ethnicity as me. So I feel like there's a lot of cultural differences, and that's why people do it.
I agree with those statements, but I also feel like at times the cafeteria can be mixed at any time. I feel like a lot of it depends on who you see and who you're comfortable talking to at that certain time.
I'm Gavin. I'm a sophomore. Liam, also a sophomore.
I'm AJ. I'm a sophomore as well.
Hey, so we will be asking you guys a few questions. The first question is, can you understand something that you're not?
For me personally, I think that you have to have a certain experience to understand things. I don't know about you guys, but experiencing stuff makes you understand it in a better way. So, what do you think?
I think you can understand the situation, but you can't understand the emotion of someone. You know, let's say someone doesn't have their parents, you can understand their situation and how that can be tough, but you can't understand their exact emotion and how they feel on that.
Yeah, I agree with Gavin there. I feel pretty similar about emotions and how it really plays a big part. You can always sympathize for, it's a really hard time not having your parents in your life, but you're never gonna really know how that feels.
Okay. The second question is, do you feel oppressed in your daily life?
No. For me, I don't think so. You know, we're at a great school where we have a lot of friends, so I think for me, no.
Yeah, for me as well. I feel at TP, I don't feel oppressed on a daily basis.
I feel like it's also a little bit hard to be oppressed as a white male.
Yeah,
it's
race plays a big part in that.
Just being white in general gives you a few more privileges than people who are black or other minorities have.
Alright, so my third and final question for you guys is, when you hear someone say you have white privilege, how do you react?
I try and understand it. I don't try and fight it. I understand I do have white privilege. I understand that what comes with it and that I should understand and not fight it and say, oh, I don't have white privilege. I'm just like you, which I'm not. I'm not just like you. I'm white.
Yeah, I think especially when thinking about the different things people have and can do, as being a white male, you can do different things that others may not have the opportunity to do. So I think definitely it's a real thing and people have to embrace that.
Yeah, no, I agree with AJ on that. I think, everyone has a certain privilege, but white privilege itself is a more of a privilege. I don't have to worry about certain things that, for instance, someone who's black has to worry about, right? If, let's say I'm walking around a store, I never have to think about, do they think I'm stealing or something like that. So it's a pretty big privilege that I think a lot of people don't think about enough, and a lot of people just kind of take for granted.
Alright, thank you guys.
Thank you.